Hola. So welcome to episode 2 of Kickin Knowledge with Yang. So today we're going to talk about embodied awareness. We're going to talk about what it is, the benefits of cultivating this quality, why we often don't do it as much as we could, and possible avenues of exploration, right? And so we're filming today's episode here at the ISH yoga studio, and this is very appropriate. This is where I do a lot of my mind-body practices and disciplines. So what is embodied awareness, or what do I mean when I talk about embodied awareness? Essentially, I'm talking about mindfulness of the body. So being aware of our current experience internally and externally in the present moment. And you might also call this sense interoception, being aware of the internal states of the body. And why would we want to cultivate this, right? So first of all, just the fundamental benefit of mindfulness is that we get to actually experience our lives as it's happening right now, as opposed to being lost in thought while the beautiful moments or the profound experience of being human here on this planet is passing us by, right? So we get to actually immerse ourselves and ride the wave of our current, in the present moment experience, which is beneficial, right? And while we're talking, I'd like for us to keep in mind this picture of the human being as a whole system, right? So that includes body, spirit, soul, or as the Reverend Dr. Pittman McGehee likes to call us, I love his term, he calls us human beings, biopsychosocial spiritual beings. So that's biological, right? The physiology of a human, but also psycho, the psyche or the soul. Social, our interactions and relationships with other human beings, and spiritual, our relationships to the transcendent and the divine. And so all of that, none of those are separate categories of being human, separate compartments. They all interact, feed into, and feed from each other, right? So we can affect the mind through the body, and the body through the mind, and other people affect us and our health, and we affect others and their health, right? So it's all connected, and you can use any of those, nurturing a more healthy relationship in any aspect of those parts of ourselves feeds into the others, right? And so the body is one that's not usually explored as often, and we're going to explore why, right? So benefit one, right, is mindfulness of the body allows us to have richer lives. Speaking personally, when I first started meditating, it was through a body awareness meditation, and what I found was that made every aspect of my life that much richer, right? So eating food in the present, when I get to really savor and enjoy my meals more, but also, oddly enough, interacting with loved ones and family members, was I get to enjoy really what it feels like in my body as I'm in presence with these human beings I care about, and just savor that experience of love, which was almost like going from a 2-dimensional plane to a 3-dimensional, more rounded out experience of being alive and being who I am in the present moment. And so I'll say for myself, I can vouch for the aspect of body awareness that does that, right? But second aspect of benefits of cultivating embodied awareness as of particular interest to mental health professionals and health professionals and caregivers is that embodied awareness can oftentimes facilitate healing from trauma. And a good book to read to learn more about this is The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. So how does this work actually, or how could this possibly work? We don't know exactly the full mechanisms, right? But a lot of trauma theorists posit that what happens is that very powerful events trigger these very strong emotions in our body, especially if they're negative, right? These strong emotions and patterns of feeling get trapped and lodged into our bodies, right, in the past, from events that happened in the past. So now whenever we're living our lives in the present moment and something triggers the memory of that event, we actually feel it physiologically, neurologically, as if it's happening right now. And hence the intense acute stress that comes from reliving this traumatic experience. And so essentially the mind-body complex reflects our emotional history. So whenever we do practices that can help us get into and release the emotional toxicity caused by those events and free them up in the body and break from those patterns of feeling, healing starts to naturally occur. So a lot of mind-body techniques do that. A beautiful experience has been being trained by the Center for Mind-Body Medicine and Jim Gordon in facilitating these groups for trauma caused by Harvey and finding relief from that. So ISH has been part of the collaborative that has been involved in leading these groups around the city of Houston, and a lot of powerful experiences of healing have been reported from this. I've experienced quite a bit of this, or witnessed some of this healing as well, and it's wild, right? So that goes back into post-traumatic growth, referencing last week's throwback. But so now we have richer experiences, we have healing from trauma, and also now this is more from the human potential part of psychology and mental health, right? Is that embodied awareness, cultivating more of that quality, right, can lead to deeper intuition, more creativity, and wisdom. Believe it or not, increased wisdom. Let's explore that a little bit, right? So right now in this present moment, I'm aware of the phone, I'm aware of my reflection in it, I'm aware of being in the room, and these things I'm consciously processing, right? But my body and my senses are picking up a lot more from my environment, way more than I can process. I'm only consciously aware of a sliver of that information. But my brain, as a human being, works as recognizing patterns, right? High pattern recognition system, in simplistic terms. So what that means is my unconscious is constantly reading this environment and reading patterns of meaning, deriving patterns of meaning from outside and from within myself, constantly, far beyond what I can be consciously aware of. But now, if I cultivate an embodied awareness, what that means is that I'm very aware of the cues and the internal states going on in my body, and a lot of that reflects on conscious processes. So without having to actually consciously process everything, what that means is that I start to actually feel urgings and things coming from the unconscious, but I feel them as rooted in my body because I'm aware of that, and I can actually act on that. So that's what acting on your gut instinct is all about, right? And everyone from executives in Silicon Valley companies to special forces, Navy SEALs to firemen and the military are constantly working on refining this. Actually, that's going on a lot right now. A good book to read about that is Stealing Fire, talking about this particular aspect of maximizing human potential through embodied awareness. It's a very interesting field, and a good example is just that you might have heard an older person, especially like a farmer or a fisherman, talk about, oh, a storm is coming and there's not a cloud in sight, and you ask them and they say, oh, I can feel it in my bones. I can feel it in my bones, right? And what that is that they've all, over years of living an outdoorsy life, right, they unconsciously process way more clues from the environment, perhaps maybe a certain sense or certain lightness in the air pressure or something of that sort, right? Every time a storm is coming, and they are more tuned into it because they're embodied, right? And so think about the possibilities for your everyday life and whatever it is you're doing. If you're more aware of the cues your body is giving you each present moment, you find that you might start to be able to make better snap judgments or calls that come from a deeper place, So intuition, creativity, but all that feeds into wisdom. So creativity is that we start to make new patterns because we're aware of how we feel, how we constantly feel. We start to get insights about patterns of our behaviors and how we live our lives, right? We can actually connect the dots and come up with novel ways of living or handling certain issues in our lives. And then now this was very interesting. There's an actual study that found out that ballet dancing actually increases one's wisdom long term. And it's funny because they weren't actually trying to study that aspect of ballet dancing. What it was that the ballet dancers were one of the control groups, including meditators, for this study on wisdom, and they were surprised to find the significant increase that came from that. And it could possibly be just any movement art form that constantly refines and works with the cues from our environment back and forth and fine-tunes that might cultivate a deeper understanding of our experience, and from that, higher emotional intelligence with ourselves, with others, which we might define as wisdom, you know. But why don't we cultivate more of this if it's so great? So let's go first into the cultural perspective, the broader perspective, right? Here in the West, we tend to look at the body as a means to an end, as opposed to an end in and of itself. So what I mean by that is that we see the body as an instrument, whether trying to get it to do things, help us perform certain things better, or we're trying to get it to look a certain way. So then it becomes an object of status. You know, we're trying to carve it out to look a certain way, or hone it out to look a certain way, or be able to do something. So we're constantly trying to see what the body can do for us, as opposed to enjoying our experience as bodies. You know, I am a person who has a body that I can use to do this, or I am a person who has a body that looks this way. And so embodied awareness takes us away from that paradigm. So it's a radical shift in how we perceive and relate with ourselves as human beings in bodies, right? Is that we start to actually experience the body for itself, as itself in the present moment, without necessarily having a goal. I'm trying to get myself to be able to do this thing, or to be able to look this way. We just experience how I feel as I am right now. All right, so that brings us to the second reason why, and this is the more personal reason why sometimes we might find ourselves blocked off from our bodies, is that also when we check into our present moments and how we feel in our bodies unconsciously, we might have a lot of uncomfortable things that we have suppressed, repressed, or are avoiding, that we're actually still feeling. A lot of times, like stress, we carry way more stress than we're consciously aware of around. And so when we tap into the body, we might start to feel that sensation of being uncomfortable in our own skin, or ill at ease. You could call it dis-ease, right? And so this is where emotional work might come into play, where we work on the mind body and we actually work on releasing the emotions, some sort of emotional body-centered therapy. And there's a lot of that going on right now. I'm happy to see that. So those are the two obstacles we might face that come up, and that's where let's see, I would highly recommend self-compassion, mindful self-compassion. This book is by Kristen Neff, and that helps us deal with the things that come up in a way that's very whole and nurturing. So what other resources do we have for cultivating this embodied awareness? Suppose one was so inclined. Well, here at ISH we have a lot of classes around this. So Tai Chi, Qigong is a great simple, non-threatening way to start to ease into our relationship with the body and start to explore that from a non-judgmental place. And we have classes here, we have trainings as well. I actually teach yoga classes over here, so you can look up one of my workshops. But even more immediately, this week, just keep an eye out on this Facebook page. I will be posting a link to a body scan, a body awareness meditation that might get your foot in the door with this. So remember, benefits, right? One, richer experience. We get to immerse ourselves in our lives as it's happening right now. Healing from trauma. A quote that comes from the Mindful Self-Compassion course I took once with Gwen Brem. She always says, our issues are in our tissues. Yeah, it's kind of corny, but I love it. It speaks to the truth of what it is to be human, right? And then so the nugget I'll talk about here is that sense of wholeness and seeing that the human being were actually really redundant, right? With patterns layered on patterns and layered on patterns. So what that means is that the more we work on embodied awareness and healing from that aspect, we might find that our concentration and our mental state gets clearer, or our stress goes down, our health gets better, or we're able to be more empathetic to other people's experiences, and our relationships are better. So it's almost like a cascading effect. And a lot of practices have that quality to them because we're humans and we're so interconnected, all the different aspects of ourselves, that when we pick one practice, it enriches and deepens other aspects of our lives. So explore cultivating more embodied awareness, and be expectant to see what's possible for you as you do this. See you next week.